So all the freight trains on the left, lots of oil tanker cars that are a pretty common sight. For the most part, the oil tanker cars are carrying jet fuel to our various airports along the rail belt as well as the military bases. On our right hand side, we can see this gate that the cars are driving through. That's leading them onto base. There's a bald eagle on the right, so it's going to fly over our train car, look straight up and fly from the right to the left. I still see it behind us. Wow, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Surprise.
America.
Okay, so we're on J Bear now. We're on the military base. On the left hand side, shortly you'll see the sign for Elmendorf. For Elmendorf Field specifically, that's the Air Force component. And we also will actually see Elmendorf Field. The tarmac for the Air Force Base will be on the left here in just the next half mile. The whole reason these military bases were built in this area was because of World War II. There was a lot of military development in Alaska at that time. With our closer proximity to Japan, it was a strategic point for the U.S. to defend from. Even though Alaska wasn't a state yet, we didn't become a state until 1949, we were a territory of the U.S. So they definitely buffed up our infrastructure. It's also when the Alcan was built, the Alaska-Canada Highway, which is the first time Alaska was connected to the lower 48 by road. So it was built by the military. During the war, we did see some action as well. Dutch Harbor on the Aleutian island of Unalaska was bombed by the Japanese. Dutch Harbor is really close to the mainland of Alaska. They had a military base there that the Japanese targeted. And the Japanese also captured 2 of the Aleutian islands and held that territory for about a year. The islands were Attu and Kiska. So we'll have our views of the tarmac on the left here. I'm just seeing the air traffic control tower. Sometimes we see some military aircraft. Let's see if anything. Looks like a pretty quiet day on the tarmac currently. Most of the military base is wilderness, and you should always, during a whole trip, be scanning for wildlife. We don't always see our bigger wildlife from the train, but if you don't see it, if you're not always looking, because we do generally pass them pretty quickly. But we do sometimes get moose sightings on base even. They have about 40,000 acres in total, and most of it's undeveloped wilderness. So, always. Alright, so we'll get a little bit more view of the military base out to the left here. They have a gravel mining operation on the left, so they're mining gravel for their construction projects here. And once we get past the gravel pit on the left also, we're going to see an area where they conduct a variety of fire drills here on J Bear. So they'll have these different stations set up coming up just here on the left. You can see these different burnout buildings and fuselage and different cars and things. So just set up to practice different emergency scenarios. And really, that's the most sign that we'll see of the military base. We will be on base still for several miles yet. In the beginning of our trip here, we are following along the Chugach mountain range. The Chugach being the mountain range that surrounds Anchorage. We'll be following them for about the first hour of our trip, and we'll have some nice views of those on and off. Also, as before the highway was built, it would primarily be by the train. There technically were some very rough roads, but mostly rail access until the highway was put in the 70s.
This is Wasilla.
has a handful of portage trails. If you have a canoe or kayak, you can carry it up and over those trails to get to other parts, other lakes, more in the remote part of the system. People go out there camping and fishing, and in the winter time as well, it's used. You can do cross-country ski trips across the lakes and portage trails, snowshoeing trips. Some areas they'll allow motorized traffic as well, so like snow machines during the summer. Well, yeah, so, or planes of course. Float planes can land on the other lakes too. And there are also a handful of public use cabins out along the portage trail, so they're nothing like the lake homes we see here. These are all pretty nice. I always like to think of a public use cabin as like an upgrade from a tent. You know, it doesn't have electricity, it doesn't have indoor plumbing, but they usually do have like wooden bunks that you can lay out your camp roll on. They usually have a wood burning fireplace. So really fun. I've done multi-day canoe trips and cross-country ski trips across the Nancy Lake system. It's a really beautiful area to explore. There's also a community of willow near here. We've seen some of the houses of willow, not a whole lot to necessarily see of the town, but I do like bringing it up briefly because if you're at all familiar with the Iditarod dog sled race, Willow is the area that departs from. So we have many dog sled races. It's our official state sport is dog mushing all throughout the winter, but the Iditarod is probably our most famous and one of our longer races for sure. That race starts in the beginning of March, and actually the first Saturday in March, all the teams will be in downtown Anchorage. We have a big festival going on for around 2 weeks during that time called Fur Rendezvous. It is so fun. We have snow sculptures, there's running of the reindeer, which is sort of like our version of running of the bulls. We have outhouse races, we have all sorts of different sports tournaments. A really fun time to be in Alaska. And then toward the end of the Fur Rendezvous Festival, the Iditarod is about ready to start. So first Saturday in March, all the teams will be in Anchorage. They just do like a 10-mile fun route through town. All the people come down along the trail from the neighborhoods. We call it trailgating for the Iditarod. So you can trailgate along the way. You know, people bring down their barbecues, hand off beers to their favorite mushers, things like that. It's basically a big party to celebrate the Iditarod and wish the mushers well. And then the next day, for Sunday in March, they'll be up in Willow. Near here, there's a lake called Willow Lake. Of course, it's frozen over in the winter, and they set up the starting line on the lake where they'll begin the timed start of the Iditarod, beginning to race a little over 1,000 miles to Nome, Alaska on the northwest coast. Yeah, that's a good question. How long does Iditarod typically last? Usually the winners will get in somewhere 9 to 10 days. But there's usually people on the trail for up to 2 weeks. Yeah, not everyone races to win. Some people are just doing it for the experience. Yes, question back here?
How many hours are between sunrise and sunset?
Oh, okay. I'll have to do some math. Things are changing quickly this time of year, but the question is how many hours between sunrise and sunset? It also is different even between Anchorage, Talkeetna, and then as you head north. But right now, I believe our sun is rising probably around 5:30 in the morning in Anchorage. I live in Anchorage, and setting maybe at 10 or so at night. Yeah, it won't really get dark this time of year. We don't really see stars until the very end of August. So the sun does technically set, but no true darkness for a couple more months yet. Of course, it's the exact opposite in the winter on our winter solstice, which is the third week in December. The sun in Anchorage comes up around 10:30 in the morning and sets around 3:30 in the afternoon. We get about 5 hours of daylight. Yeah, and of course it's more extreme the farther you head north. Once you hit the Arctic Circle, that's where you'll have days where the sun doesn't rise at all in the winter time or set at all in the summer. In our farthest north community, Utqiagvik, also called Barrow, Utqiagvik, they'll have 30 days or so where the sun doesn't rise in the winter time, and 30 days where it doesn't set in the summer. So that will be the most extreme you'd get in Alaska.
30 days.
Alright, so if you look behind us on the left, you have to look kind of toward the back of the train. There's a very strange tower that you'll be able to see just over the tree line. We'll get another gap right maybe here. If you look behind us on the left, this is just a quick view. There it is. You see that? We call that the official name is the Goose Creek Tower. Oftentimes you'll hear it referred to as the Dr. Seuss house. It was built by a lawyer that has property over there, and he wanted a house that he'd be able to see Denali from, so he kept building it up and up until eventually he would always be above the trees. It's just short of 200 feet tall. It is true, when the weather cooperates, you can see Denali in this area. We say about 30% of the people get to see it on their trip though, because it's a lot taller than everything around it, which means it collects a lot of weather on it. So we'll see. I've been keeping an eye out for it. It is northwest of us from here. No sightings yet today. It's a little bit cloudy, so I'm not super optimistic, but you never know. So I'll let you know if it decides to show itself during our train ride. We have about 20 miles left to Talkeetna. We are in the beginning of the climbing season, or I guess almost mid-season now, for the mountain. The climbers actually check in for climbing the mountain in Talkeetna. They're still almost 60 miles from the mountain itself, but there's a ranger station in Talkeetna that manages the climbers. So they'll come, they need a permit. This year about 1,100 permits were distributed. So they'll come check in at the ranger station. The ranger checks out all their equipment. They have a list of required equipment that they're supposed to bring, including canisters in which they have to carry out their own human waste as well. That is a requirement. It's a completely pack-in, pack-out trail. And since Denali is within the national park, it's very strictly managed. So even what comes out of your body also has to come off the mountain with you. So they make sure that they have the appropriate gear for that too. Once everything is good and they get their briefings and all that, then they'll go to the Talkeetna airport where they'll fly to the base camp at 7,000 feet. Technically, they can drive, or not drive, there are no roads. Technically, they can hike there, but it does add about 3 weeks on to the expedition. So it has been done, but it's pretty rare that people do that, since once you're at base camp, people usually budget about 3 weeks for attempting to climb the mountain. I haven't checked the report this week, but last week it looked like there were maybe about 250 people currently on the mountain. I would guess that number has gone up since then. It's a pretty busy season because they can usually only hike on the mountain until about July or so, when the snow starts getting too soft. So looking forward and left, we can see some mountains in the distance. No Denali today, but we are looking at some of the shorter mountains of the Alaska mountain range. You can just start seeing the white caps out there. A lot of the mountains that we see out there, probably maximum 7,000 feet or so in elevation. Maybe there's some 8,000 pointers there. And just keep in mind, Denali is 20,000 feet, over 20,000 feet. So it's more than twice the size of the mountains that we're able to see currently. Sometimes we see some trumpeter swans in these beaver ponds down here on the left. I always keep an eye out for them. Trumpeter swans are actually the largest bird that we have in Alaska by wingspan. From tip to tip, their wingspan can get up to 8 feet. Very impressive. And so it's bigger even than the eagles. Let's see. I feel like their nest is a little more toward the north end of the pond here, so I'm gonna keep on looking. Oh yeah, there's one right down next to us in the water, one of the swans. Oh yeah, one is sitting on the nest. I can just see the white body sitting on that mound toward the end of the pond, directly next to us there. Her head's tucked in, laying on the eggs. It is right around now that they'll lay their eggs, and it's usually sometime in June we'll start seeing the baby swans, the cygnets, swimming around.
You could measure, and there was probably about a 2-inch gap between.
I have been delivered a question,
And the out.
and I know the answer. This is a good thing. Yes, so the question that was delivered to me is, what's the difference between a brown bear and a grizzly bear? All right, so brown bear is actually the species. Grizzly bear is a subspecies. So grizzly bear is a brown bear. We also have coastal brown bears and Kodiak bears. These are all brown bears. There was a time in history where we thought they were different species because they do look a little bit different, but has more to do with their diet and environment versus genetically. So in Alaska, typically we call our brown bears of the interior grizzly bears. And they tend to have a little bit more vegetarian diet. They definitely do eat meat. If they can get a young or sick moose, they'll absolutely hunt a moose, or our rodents like marmots or Arctic ground squirrels, they'll definitely eat those, but they have a lot of vegetation in their diet as well. Once you get more on the coast, you'll get bears that are more primarily feeding on fish, so they tend to get a lot bigger. Those are the main differences. They're all brown bears. And then the other species that we have around Alaska are black bears. And sometimes the name can be a little bit misleading because sometimes you'll get kind of a more brownish colored black bear. Brown bears can range from blonde to more gingery to dark brown, so there's a range of color in there as well. To for sure identify, you'll want to be looking more at other physical features. Brown bears tend to have a pretty large hump at their shoulders, very, very powerful shoulder muscles for digging, for getting at those ground squirrels. They'll also eat roots and tubers, so very strong shoulder muscles to power that digging. Black bears don't really have that hump at the shoulders, and they tend to have a little bit of a longer snout. Black bears do. Black bears also have more round ears, a little bit bigger round ears on their head. Grizzly bears just have little tiny ears.
We are pulling into Talkeetna.
As we get closer to Talkeetna, I just want to say one more time, if we could give Crystal just a round of applause for doing such an amazing job giving us all these nice facts about Alaska. On our way out, I just wanted to make sure, please double check your seats, your trays, the pockets in front of your seats. Make sure you're not leaving behind any wallets, phones, chargers. Although we'd appreciate it, we don't need any more of those items.
Toast bear.
Better than it gets.
There it is, right there. There's the drum. Yep. That's our buck, the drum.
Yeah, but it's just a
I'm standing on the highest ledge, right on the world's most windy edge, and making a brand new pledge to never live my life in fear, to make my purpose crystal clear. The reason that I'm standing here, my heart is beating like a drum for all the things that are to come. Take a breath and make the leap, a promise I will always keep. This is the adventure of a lifetime, a moment that is so sublime. I'm in my own true happy prime, committing a most perfect crime. The adventure of a lifetime, I'm ringing my own victory chime. The adventure of a lifetime, and I am not wasting any time. The world is rushing past my face in this amazing magic place. I'm running in a different race. Not one of slow and steady pace, but one of style and one of grace. A challenge I will now embrace. The adrenaline is all I need to plant a new and hopeful seed. You only get one life to live, so take the chances that it gives. Be brave and strong.
Look out the window. Just about 200 feet down drop over there. Hold your breath. Ah, there we go. And we've kind of been paralleling this more or less since we were in Wasilla earlier. We were eating breakfast. That said, the Talkeetna range is going to kind of peter off, and we will be
The adventure of a lifetime, and I am not wasting any
bump into each other in different times and places. But they have pretty distinct languages and cultures, even within the Athabascan communities. You're coming into a broad pass here, everybody. As you can see, pretty sparse. That permafrost gets pretty close to the surface here. We're not going to see any white spruce. These are basically all black spruce with that horizontal root system that allows it to get as many nutrients as possible without having to dive deep into the permafrost areas. This is also a good area to kind of appreciate how deep the glaciers were through here. You can see these smaller hills are a little more rounded and smooth, whereas the peaks of them are a little more jagged and rigid. That shows you what parts of those mountains were below the glacier 12,000 plus years ago, as the last ice age kind of raged around planet Earth. These babies are 2 years old. Mom's getting ready to kick them out of the house. They're about to get... Wait a minute.
He's 2.
Is that... Yeah, that's Mom. Yeah, look, she's probably already being a little bit ornery with these guys, trying to... Wait a minute. Does the bigger one have antlers? The bigger one does have antlers. This is a weird dynamic, you guys. I don't know what is going on here. It's not often that a male hangs out with 2 younger ones. They might be siblings and one just outgrew the others. But that's an interesting dynamic. Not often you see 3 of them hanging out like that together unless it's a mom and 2 babies. Huh.